All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Dungan-Mott Music and Movie Podcast. I'm Devin Dunnigan, and here with me today, as always, is Mr. Stephen Mott. How you doing, brother?
No.
All righty, so we are back this time. We're going to try to change it up just a little bit compared to what we usually do. Mostly, we do album reviews, but we're going to do something different and do a reaction. And this is to an article. It's several years old now, but what we originally intended to do, we figured this would be more interesting to kind of look at than what we were planning to do. And then we're also going to do another thing at the end of this episode where we actually do sort of a subject that is connected to what we're going to talk about with our reaction, but we're basically reacting to the Van Halen albums ranked worst to best on the Ultimate Classic Rock website, and then we're going to do the top 5 worst Van Halen songs between both of us. I think we both have a different list, I hope, and we'll get more into it as the show goes on. But yeah, I mean, this was Steven's idea, so I mean, we go ahead and get into it. I mean, Van Halen's got 12 albums, all the way from the '78 debut until A Different Kind of Truth from 2012. And I mean, it's kind of a relatively short discography and a very, very long career. And I think it's unfortunate that it is as short as it is, but some people consider it to be shorter than that because a lot of people don't like to even throw the Sammy stuff in there as Van Halen, or the Van Sharon stuff. But yeah, I mean, are you ready to go, Steven? We'll get on into it.
Yes, brother Jake Z Drummer.
All righty, so this is ranked from 12 to 1. So Van Halen 3 is ranked at number 12. So I think this is a pretty good ranking. This is not my least favorite Van Halen album, actually. I'd rank this one probably number 11 on my personal ranking. But yeah, I can see this definitely. It's kind of a fan hated album. Most people really don't like this record. I do. I think it's very creative. I think Eddie had a lot of good ideas. Now, to say they were all fleshed out or not, that's a different story and a different subject for another day. But I somewhat agree with this list. It says here that there are some cool moments and interesting experiments, but it just comes off as unfocused and half baked. And that's paraphrasing the little article under there. But Stephen, what do you think about this ranking here? Do you agree with it? Disagree with it? What you think?
Well, I tell you, overall, I saw something to start off, with I didn't agree with the opening article about the whole thing in general, of it saying that there were lots of lineup changes. It says on here, surprisingly long series of lineup changes. Compare it to someone like Molly Hatchet or Whitesnake or something like that. I mean, just go through a list and just make a list of all the band members and make a list of all the Van Halen band members. You'll see what I mean. Like, compared to other bands, that is just literally nothing. And I mean, that's just not a good point to make to me. But I mean, anyway, 1998, Van Halen 3. I mean, I completely concur. It says half baked on here. I'm going to say half assed because that's what they really want to say. And I just don't know. And it says on here about the Brown M&M story. Okay. Let's see. And then it just talks about how everybody hates Van Halen 3, basically, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and because it failed commercially, didn't really say that, but this is probably more of opinion, not as far as sales, obviously, but I mean, it might as well be. But I mean, Van Halen 3 is not great to me. Personally, it's definitely the worst. So, but anyway, I mean that's all I got to say. It says Van Halen's only album with Gary Sharon comes off as half baked as unfocused. Yeah, I agree. So back to you.
All righty. So yeah, we both agree. I think you agree a lot more than I do, but yeah, I definitely see this as the worst Van Halen record. Like I said, I would put one probably below it, but I guess looking at it in a technical sense, the one I would put below it is a better album overall and a lot more coherent. But I do like Van Halen 3. I love Dark Horse albums, and that's the definition of a Dark Horse album is Van Halen 3. So coming in at number 11 is Balance. Like Van Halen 3. I definitely see it. It's a fan hated album overall. A lot of people say it's the worst of the Van Hagar era. It's actually my second favorite of the Van Hagar era. I'd put it right under 5150 as being my favorite of that period. But yeah, I definitely see the reasoning and overall, I don't know if they did this list from a vote or whatever or like a poll, but if that's the case, like I do see where this is ranked at and why it's ranked where it is. But I mean, it's got some great songs to me on it, and it says here like, "Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do" and "Take Me Back," "Deja Vu." Show the band tackling more serious subjects and tones. It's kind of like the grunge album for Van Halen. Like all those bands were getting darker, and a song like "Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do" is definitely darker for Van Halen, and it's a very like difficult record because all the band members were against one another pretty much. It's just one of those records where you can hear the kind of hatred against each other on the album itself. And it says here some of the tracks are rather lifeless, and it seems like the chemistry is just kind of gone. But yeah, I do like the album quite a bit. I think Balance is a great record. So, Stephen, what do you think?
Well, I think that number 10 and number 11 should be swapped out. Personally, that's what I think. I think that for unlawful carnal knowledge is worse and not as coherent as you would put it, and
I agree.
I mean I don't want to skip ahead too much, so let me talk about this album. Really, I mean this is 1995 here, so like you said, grunge, blah blah blah. I really do like. I don't necessarily love every track, but most of them I could listen to, and they rock pretty good. I mean, like I don't know. I'm looking at some of these they got on here. They got songs like "Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do," "Take Me Back," um, tackling more serious subjects, tones. Well, they've been doing that ever since 5150, in my opinion. But in some ways, "Take Me Back" is just a more ballad type song. But "Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do," that's more of a like something they've never quite done before that I could think of at this moment. It's just like you said, it's something that Eddie has said in it's an interview book I talked about before, but it's a book of interviews of Eddie Van Halen, and he said that he did not want this song to go lyrically in the direction it did, but he actually meant it to be about something totally different. So, which I'm not going to go into right now, but yeah, you can research it more yourself. But I mean, basically, like I half agree with this list, half and half, because the stuff to say in the articles, it seems like they're a little bit misinformed to me. and they're just kind of going. It seemed like it was kind of done in like it just in a half-baked, half-assed way. So anyway, I think that it should be switched, and I sort of do like balance better than for unlawful carnal knowledge. So there you go. Back to you.
All righty. So then we move to number 10 for unlawful carnal knowledge, aka the F Word album. So this is probably my least favorite Van Halen record. I love some songs off of it, like Pound Cake, Judgment Day. I like Spanked quite a bit, even though it's kind of cheesy. I like Run Around. I like Pleasure Dome musically. I don't like the song lyrically. I think it's a bit pretentious. But yeah, there's some great songs on here, but the filler is very much filler and not great at all. I think live it's a little bit better overall, but yeah, I would probably put this as my least favorite Van Halen album. I think it's a better album than Van Halen 3 in a technical sense, but personally, in my with my tastes, I think it's probably my least favorite. It's the one I listen to the least for sure. I go to Van Halen 3 a lot more, and I go to Balance a whole lot more than that one. But yeah, I know it's a fan favorite. A lot of people say, oh, it's the best Van Hagar album. It's the one where they got back to the plot again and got away from the keyboards, which they very much did. They got away from the keyboards and the synthesizers and all of that and tried to do a hard rock record. And you got Ted Templeman back and Andy Johns on here as a producer. And I get it. I understand where they were going with this record, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of this one. I mean, like I said, there's some great songs. Like I mean, Right Now is a great song. I mean, it says here a decade that wasn't too kind to Van Halen was the 1990s, but they took a giant step up in quality. And it says apart from the massive piano-led hit Right Now, which I mean, like I said, it's a great song. But it says here it's probably the most straight ahead guitar focused album of the Van Hagar era. And yeah, I do agree with that statement. And it says you're missing the diversity of OU812 and 5150. And I know a lot of people, which I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I know a lot of people hate OU812 because it's wet, like all over the place in a lot of ways. But I like that record. But I mean, we're not there just yet. But Stephen, what do you think of this ranking here, where it's at on the list?
Well, like I said, in my opinion, it should be second to last on this list, on my list anyway. But 1991. So, I mean, if it's 91, people should be listening to Skinner 91. So, but anyway, I digress from that topic. It's just an in joke.
Oh my!
So, I mean, luckily, we're almost done with the 90s on our list. Okay. So I can see where this guy's getting at here. I think he's just I think he's trying to go with the popular opinion with this list. That's my opinion on his opinion. But I really do. What I gather from this is I think he's trying to go with more of a popularity contest with the choices he has on here, and what he says of stuff on here is going to be what 90% of Van Halen fans will tell you. And but that's just me, you know. That's what I get from this. Like the piano massive lead hit Right Now. Apart from that, straight ahead guitar focused album of the Van Halen era. To me, Balance was guitar focused. You know, I mean, I could see where you could make the argument of 5150 OU812 was, you know, it had lots of keyboards in it. But Balance, I mean, didn't particularly. I think Balance was just as guitar focused as this one is. Maybe this album had more solo spots, like, you know, guitar intros and stuff, only 80s guitar, you know, like those three in a row, like Pleasure Dome and In and Out, stuff like that. It had, you know, they did Pleasure Dome, I believe it is. alive, and they did it instrumentally, and it sounded so much better. But when they came in with that, you know, Pleasure Dome is actually on my top 5 worst ever of Van Halen songs. We're gonna get to that a little later, but you know, I mean, when the sole reason for that is because of Sammy Hagar's vocals, and I think that's honestly the mantra of the whole thing, you know. But I digress from that. Um, I just think this album could have been better with a different producer and singer. That's the way I think about it. I don't hate Sammy Hagar, but for this particular album, for the song, for the musicality of it, I don't think Sammy fit. So anyway, that's all I got. So back to you.
Alrighty, so number 9 here, and this is where I definitely disagree with this guy. A Different Kind of Truth from 2012. Like, this is probably the best album they've done since 1984, in my opinion. Like, I put this above all of the Sammy albums, the Sharon album. I mean, it says here like it suffers from being too long and has too much filler. And like I said, all of this is me paraphrasing these articles. But like, I don't think this album has really any filler. Like, everybody hates Tattoo. I've always thought Tattoo was a pretty cool song. Yeah, it's a bit cheesy lyrically, but I've always thought it was a pretty cool song. And I mean, it's as Van Halen as you can get. It's the classic sound through and through. I know a lot of people say the only thing it's really missing is Ted Templeman. I do agree. I wish he would have came back and produced it, but who knows if the album would have gotten put out if he would have came back, because it was kind of a fight to even get the album made, and it was more Wolfgang jumping in and saying, "Hey, let's do this album, let's get it done, let's get it out there." But yeah, I definitely don't see this at all. I'd put this on up there a ways, and yeah, this it's popular opinion though. Like you was talking about a minute ago, it's kind of going off of the popular Van Halen fan base and kind of the opinions people have, because there's a lot of people who hate this record, and I've seen it for a long time. A lot of people feel like it's just Van Halen just kind of going in and just doing whatever and not really working on a record. They're just taking old demos and refurbishing them and making them new and current songs. And like, people stop thinking about where the earlier albums came from. I mean, even some of the Hagar albums, not Sharon. Well, one of the Sharon songs on that record is from earlier Van Halen, and I mean, Eddie used ideas that he had during his career at various points. I mean, there's like the song "Dirty Water Dog" is a song called "I Want Action" from 5150, or "I Want Some Action," I think is what it's actually called. And it's basically that instrumental reused all over again. And he also used it for Sucker and the Three Piece, and then Steve Lukather used it on his solo album. So yeah, I definitely disagree with it here. But like I said, for the most part, a lot of fans hate A Different Kind of Truth. In particular, a lot of people hate the production on that record. But yeah, I do enjoy it a lot. So Stephen, what do you think?
I just don't know. Um, 2012. Let's see here. Let's see what the great guy has to say here. Delightfully raw. Let's see. Slight case of too long, too much filler. Ensnared nearly every artist. Okay, so the compact disc thing he's talking about, same thing you were earlier on another episode I was listening to just earlier today. Devin was talking about this subject, the compact disc era. But anyway, so them being long and stuff like that. This record, I really think that it as far as just musicality, it's old riffs, but again, who cares? It's not like Eddie's ripping it off from other people. It's his own stuff. So how is anybody even going to know if they don't do tons of research that it's not from 2040? I mean, however long it was before. It doesn't matter. It's his own stuff. He came up with the idea. I mean, who freaking cares? And on top of it, it's not a new singer. It's an old singer that came back. you know? I mean, that argument is just like, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, so as far as this particular article, delightfully raw guitar focused. Okay, I can agree with that. Too much filler. Like you said, I don't see filler in this. I just see straight rock. That's what I get from this record. It's just straight rock for old school type style with a new sounding production. That's all I get from this record. And if you don't like old stuff, you wouldn't like this. So that's my opinion of it. I mean, I think that this stuff should probably be ahead of the Van Hagar stuff. I'm like Devin, so it's more fitting to the Van Halen name. So there you go. Back to you.
All righty, and yeah, I mean, I don't even think the album was that long. I mean, everybody says too long. I don't think it's too long, really. I've kind of warmed up here recently to like longer albums and stuff, but yeah, I think it's just right. I mean, especially after this long of being away and not putting out an album, because the last thing they had put out was those 3 songs off of the Best of Both Worlds compilation. And I mean, those songs were kind of mixed at best for most people. But yeah, and I wouldn't put any Van Hagar above the Dave stuff. So yeah, it's definitely not for me here. But number 8, OU812. So yeah, like I said, I wouldn't put any Hagar stuff above the Dave era. It's my third favorite Van Hagar album. I like the album quite a bit, but I think there's a lot of filler on that album. I mean, songs like Source of Infection is kind of like It's good musically, but it's kind of eh. And then Cabo Wabo is another one. Everybody loves that song, but I'm not a fan of it. I like it a little bit more live than the studio, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. And then Sucker in a Three Piece, Apolitical Blues is whatever. I mean, it has its moments for sure, and I like the record just fine. But yeah, I think it also needs to be remixed because that production on that record is not the best in the world. It's extremely raw, but maybe a little bit too raw. And I kind of see what they were trying to go for there. But yeah, I mean, the article here says they got back to work to make this record, and it's probably the most diverse collection of songs ever. Yeah, I do agree there. It's probably the most all over the place. I mean, you've got like a country tinge song with Finish What You Started. And then it says Cabo Wabo is Led Zeppelin esque, which I disagree with because it's a rewrite of the song Make It Last by Montrose. And it says that's the best thing or one of the best things that lineup ever recorded. But there's some filler here for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree there. So, Steve, what do you think about OU812 and the placement on here?
Well, I agree with the placement overall. Is from looking at the standpoint of everything, 1988. Let's see here. On the heels of their first tour with Hagar, I really liked the live video they put out from the 5150 tour. That tour was great to me. That might be my favorite like live era. That's just me though. But because Eddie would go do the keyboards and stuff like that also. But anyway, I mean, it says, let's see, the Led Zeppelin-esque Cabo Wabo. Okay, I don't quite get that, but okay. Let's see. It's one of the best things this lineup has ever recorded, but there's some filler here for sure. Okay. I don't think Cabo Wabo was the best thing they ever recorded or close, but I mean, I like the song, but it's just okay. Anyway, but I mean, OU813, I mean 2. uh, yeah, I think they were. I got the sense that they were trying to keep the momentum going from 5150, and I mean it's like 5150 was just like lightning in a bottle, I should say. Um, that record was great in my opinion overall. There's a few songs on it that I'm like, what the crap? Two of them are on my top 5 worst. um, but other than those, I mean just like great. This record, it seems like a step down in quality. Production wise, I mean the way it's like just kind of there's songs on it that seem like kind of throw together to me, you know. But I don't know. They're not horrible. It's just they're, like you said, diverse album. It's a diverse album because you got straight rock stuff, and then you've got ballad. So it kind of flip flops when you're listening to it. It flips from song to song. It goes back and forth. It seems like to me, but I feel like that could have been evened out a little more with it. But I mean, as far as placement on the list, the fact that it's the last one, or actually 5150 is okay. I see one problem I have already. They've got Diver Down placed after 5150. Okay, yeah. That's my first vast disagreement. But anyway, yeah, I agree with the placement though. As far as from here on out, I think the placement is horrible. So back to you.
Alrighty, so speaking of that, number 7, Diver Down. So I definitely disagree with that. I like Diver Down a lot. I know a lot of people hate it. Most people, a lot of the detractors of the Dave era, they point at that one as like not even a Van Halen record because it's all covers. And even Eddie hated the album because he said he would rather have a bomb with his own material than have a hit with someone else's. And I just think this record is just fun from start to finish. I mean, where have all the good times gone? Hang 'em High, which is an original. I love that. Secrets, which I love. Little guitars, the instrumentals on there I really enjoy, like Intruder and then Cathedral. Even the little guitar intro, I love the whole record, even down to Happy Trails, which is kind of like a joke song. I still really enjoy that. Big Bad Bill, The Full Bug, Dancing in the Street. I know some people really hate that. Even the people that love Diamond Dave and are like Van Halen Dave purists, they hate that song. But yeah, I like Diver Down a lot. I think it's a great record. And it says this is easily the most criticized of all the Roth records. And yeah, it has a lot of cover songs, and they did rush it because they wanted to get out on the road, and so they put the "Oh Pretty Woman" single out. But then the record company said, "Let's just do an album of covers because that was such a hit." So then they rushed in, did that, and I mean, and it says a lot of amazing guitar interludes that turn up between the tracks, and it maintains a wonderful, consistent summer day at the beach tone. So yeah, I love it, but don't think I agree with it being at number 7, mostly because I wouldn't put any Van Hagar above the Dave era. So yeah. What is your take on where Diver Down is at?
This is complete shiitake, man. I'm done with this list. Like 7? I mean, I just don't know, man. I mean, Van Halen 2 at number 5? Are you kidding me? So, okay, Diver Down. Let me focus a little bit here. Okay, it's criticized by David Lee Roth, front-led Van Halen records. Okay. I'm just like, seriously. I just don't know. Yeah, like it says, series of amazing guitar interludes. Yeah, and then you have stuff. I mean, I just you have stuff like down here. You've got Woman and Children First over Van Halen 2. I mean, seriously, man, this is like some dumb. This is like dumb idiot level stuff right here. This guy is not. It's obviously not really. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm done, man. Like Diver Down is not number 7. It's not going to be over any Van Halen's Hagar stuff. I just don't know. 1984. So back to you, Devin.
Alrighty, so number 6 is 5150. So I enjoy 5150 a lot. I disagree. I would probably put this at 8. Under probably, I don't know. I may would put a different kind of truth at number 7 under the classic 6-pack, and then 5150. I'd have to really think on that. Either different kind of truth or Women and Children First, because I like Women and Children First. Well, I love the album, but I don't know. I'd have to really think on that. But yeah, I would not put 5150 up there above any of the Dave albums. It's a great record. It's a pop album. It's pop perfection to me. I mean, I like Good Enough. Well, Why Can't This Be Love is a great song. Get Up. It's good musically. I like the title track 5150. I like Dreams a lot. Best of Both Worlds is pretty cool. Love Walks In's one of their best songs with Hagar. And I mean, it says here we're in 5-star territory from here on out. All but the most stubbornly entrenched Roth loyalists would concede that 1986's 5150 found the band successfully incorporating Sammy Hagar into its lineup while also completely reinventing and expanding its sound. And then it says also Best of Both Worlds might be Van Hagar's masterpiece. No, I would disagree with that. But yeah, I liked the record a lot, but I would not put this at number 6. I'd probably put this at number 8, up under either Women and Children First or Different Kind of Truth. I'd have to really think on that. But I mean, I love both of those records. But yeah, what do you think, Steven?
There are songs on that album that are even twice and 3 times as much better as Best of Both Worlds, and about as good as my grammar also. But I mean, 5150. This was basically, like I said before, lightning in a bottle. They were actually surprised themselves, I'm pretty sure, that it turned out this good. The producers couldn't believe it either. Um, I mean, it was just like the most unforetold thing ever to me that Sammy Hagar would join this band. I mean, that's just my opinion, but then then they come out and the stuff that's it's not like the stuff that Sammy Hagar has done in his whole career is this pop oriented. Not even by a long shot. Like Your Love Is Driving Me Crazy is sort of popish, but it's not even as pop as the stuff on this record. So what I mean? I mean, I just don't understand how or why that it turned out like this. It's just like it's good. Most of this record is great, but I just don't get it. Like I don't know if whoever was producing it or some producer involved pushed them in that direction. I have read accounts that Eddie was into keyboards heavily at this point. Obviously, he was because he wrote a lot of keyboard material, and I think that's the main reason, you know. But Sammy is just more of a. If when you think of Sammy Hagar, to me, you don't think of necessarily pop. You just think of straight rock, especially his older stuff, Three Lock Box, like older stuff. But I mean, that's just me. I mean, it's just kind of a surprise album. When it came out, I bet people was just like, "What the hell is this? Is this Van Halen?" But I don't know. I mean, I still though I don't agree with the list because they're putting Diver Down ahead of it. I just don't agree with that. I mean, if you're talking about in terms of popularity, yes. But if you're talking about just in terms of like personal opinion of the better album overall, then I would say Diver Down is still to me better. I mean, I love the 5150 to death, but it's, like I said, as far as the Van Halen name itself, it's just different, you know. But like you was talking about the purist people, But this guy's obviously going towards popularity, you know. Maybe so his article would go get that much more popularity. I don't know. But now after this song, the rant is fixing to start. I'm just telling you right now because the fact that they're putting Van Halen 2 at number 5 is fixing to trigger me. So back to you.
All righty. And yeah, talking about 5150 some more. I mean, there's the story about how Warner Brothers didn't even want the band to call themselves Van Halen. They wanted them to call themselves Van Hagar or something else totally different because they had really no faith in it. And then when the president of Warner Brothers Records heard the song, Why Can't This Be Love? I believe the Warner Brothers president was Mo Austin, I believe. When he heard Why Can't This Be Love, he stuck his finger up in the air and said, I smell money. So, yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, listening to stories about this record, it's an anomaly that it came out to be this great of a record. But yeah, I definitely disagree with the spot on the list. And it was produced by Mick Jones of Foreigner. So, yeah, it does have that commercial sound to it. And I like the production a lot on it. I think it's got a very polished production, but it fits the record. So, Steve kind of foreshadowed it here. Van Halen 2, yeah, I would not have put this at 5. This is probably my second favorite Van Halen record after the original. And it says, other than The Godfather Part 2, there probably isn't a sequel that's as good as the original, but Van Halen 2 comes pretty close. Recorded in 3 weeks while the band took a quick break from conquering the world city by city. And it says, finds them sticking pretty close to the template of the first record with slightly lesser songs, but even more confidence and swagger. I don't even see like there's lesser songs on this record. I think this is just as good as the first record. I mean, I love You're No Good, which is a cover of the Linda Ronstadt song. I love the song Dance the Night Away. Yeah, it's radio song. It's a radio song and it's burnt out, but I still love it. Somebody Get Me a Doctor's great. DOA, Spanish Fly, which is basically the acoustic eruption. I mean, this album's great from start to finish. It's my second favorite Van Halen record. And even what he said about this record, like, why do you put it at number 5? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand that at all. So, Steven, what do you think about this?
I really do, man. I'm just done with this list because okay, so you like you said, you say the things that you do. That Van Halen 1 is number 1 on your list, and then you say, oh, it's like the close sequel that you can best have, but yet it's at number 5. Okay, I mean, come on, Kiss. I mean, seriously. Seriously. 1979 Van Halen 2. So you're telling me that's better than Women and Children First? Really? Okay. Oh, really? So you got Beautiful Girls, you got, you know, I mean, every song on that album is better than the whole thing of Women and Children First. Even the production is not is horrible on Women and Children First. Songs aren't horrible. I don't get this guy's logic. I mean, seriously. I just don't know. No. Just no. So back to you.
All right. So, number 4, speaking of Women and Children First, it says we're definitely in the golden years now. Like, we weren't already in the golden years with Van Halen 2 and Diver Down. And it says they gave the band the first real chance to stretch out in the studio. They took full advantage by writing songs that didn't date back to the club days. That's wrong because In a Simple Rhyme was from back in the club days, I believe. And it says experimenting with studio overdubs and even an overdriven electric piano on And the Cradle Will Rock. Uh, like I said, this is probably one of my least favorite of the Dave era. I love it. I think it's a great record. I mean, I don't think there's a bad record of the Dave era. But yeah, I mean, this is very, very weird. Like, I would probably put this at 6 or 7 for sure. But I mean, there's some great songs on it. I mean, and the Cradle Will Rock. I mean, like he said, I mean, it's a great song. Loss of Control, as most people hate that song, I actually enjoy that song a lot. And I mean, In a Simple Rhyme, I really enjoy that song. I mean, it's one I don't go to a whole lot, but I do like the song. And Everybody Wants Some's a classic. I'm thinking about what else is on this record. Could this be magic? I really enjoy. I mean, the album as a whole is great. I think it's just such a great album. Fools is another one, but yeah, this I don't get that. I mean, putting that above Van Halen 2, like, other than that it's all original material. It's not any covers on there. I mean, I get that, but yeah, that's kind of like, okay, I that's doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So Steven, tell me what you think about this.
Well, I've already told people what I think about this, so I'm just gonna take a deep breath here, and I'm gonna pretend like that this didn't happen. Because let me just talk about the album. So 1980, they took full advantage of writing songs that didn't go back to the club days. Okay, I'll agree with what he said about overdubs. There were overdubs. There's overdubs on every song, everything Van Halen. You have to
And
have
it's experimental.
you have to have like overdubs to a certain extent. Like when you have a guitar solo, he has to go back and overdub the solo. That's an overdub. I just don't know, man. Like I sort of see what he's saying, but then again, like with the keyboard thing, yeah, there's one song that has a keyboard, and the Cradle Will Rock. Screw these people, man. And it's not overdriven. Like it's not taking over the whole song. It's just there. Overdriven. I'd like to see his definition of the word overdriven, because that's not my definition. I just can't imagine what that would sound like. I don't know. I just don't. I mean, this record, it has, I think what he means by stretching out in the studio is that there are songs on this record that make you go, okay, this is different. Like some of the acoustic stuff. Let me pull up some examples here, because I know Devin's going to get mad if I play it out loud. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just play it. Could This Be Magic? And Take Your Whiskey Home. Well, Take Your Whiskey Home's got an acoustic intro, which I love. Could This Be Magic is acoustic. Slide. Now that you can't tell me they've done anything like that before. That's what he's talking about. But then you got everything else is just straight rock. I mean, it's not that different all the way up to the end. At the end, it's different. And I will say I don't like the production on this record. I mean, it's even more rawer than the first couple albums. Even in the first album, it just sounds muddy to me. I mean, seriously. But I just don't know, man. I mean, I do agree with the last three. The top three on this list. I agree with that. But up from down from that, I'm done, man. This is just misinformation. So bye.
Alrighty, so number 3 here, after I clicked out of the article altogether, but number 3 is Fair Warning. So I definitely agree here. I think this is a great record. I love Mean Street. I love Dirty Movies, Center Swing, Push Comes to Shove. I mean, it's a great record. I mean, it's perfect from start to finish. I mean, even the songs some people hate, like Sunday Afternoon in the Park and the One Foot Out the Door. I love both of those. They're weird, but I love them. And this was definitely Eddie basically stepping up and saying, "Hey, this is the direction I want to go in. Like, let's not do all these covers. Let's not do all this just stuff we've done on the prior albums. Like, let's just do something different." And I know it was a fight to do all of it, but I still think it's an amazing album. I love it. It's the Dark Horse album, as a lot of people call it. And it says the album found Eddie Van Halen, like I said, reportedly seizing control in order to create Van Halen's darkest, weirdest, and downright nastiest album. It was the least commercially successful release. Yeah, it didn't sell very well. And Unchained was kind of the only big song off the record. And it's just, I mean, such a great album. I love it. It's like kind of some people call it like the man's Van Halen record, and I kind of agree. Like it's Van Halen. Like a lot of people say Van Halen matured with the Sammy era. Like this is like Van Halen maturing in the Roth era. Like this is not. It's got fun songs on it, but like it's not really a party album too much. It's kind of a little bit darker in places, especially musically. I do like a whole lot. So Stephen, what do you think?
But it also might be the album you play for the Martians when they land on Earth and demand to know what's exactly special about Edward Van Halen. God.
Oh my.
Okay. Okay, Van Halen, number 3. So basically Van Halen 3, I guess. Um, no. Van Halen number 3. Number 3. I just no. I don't like the number 3. No. I'm just playing. So yeah, I agree with what Devin said. He's got it spot on. But it is, to me, it may even be better than 1984 in some ways. To me, I do agree with this top 3, but not necessarily in this order. I would probably put Fair Warning number 3. And in fact, I'll tell you the way I would do this. I would put Van Halen 1 at number 1. I would put Van Halen 2 at number 2. I would probably put Fair Warning at number 3. Then go from there. Period.
That's what I would do. Yeah.
So definitely to me. But you know, I know that's not probably the most popular thing, but that's just, I'm not going for a popularity contest like this guy is. So, I mean, yeah, 84 is great, but it's not, to me, it's not better than Fair Warning. I used to hate Fair Warning when I was like first getting into Van Halen. I understand it more now. You know, I didn't used to understand Eddie's sound as much. When you understand and get deep into Eddie's overall sound and his vision for the band, this might even be the best as far as Eddie taking over and doing what he wanted to do with an album in that regard. So this is that to me, in that way, it's just the same as Van Halen 3. Because a lot of people say, now bear with me, a lot of people say that what's his name? Let's see, Gary Sharon was a yes man, and I think DLR turned into a yes man for Fair Warning, because sure seems like it to me. Those two albums are neck and neck to me, because if you let Eddie do what he wants to do, and if he did a solo record, this is exactly what it would sound like. It would musically, it would sound just like this. So it's my opinion. Back to you, Devin.
All righty. So number 2 here is 1984. I do somewhat agree. I see it definitely in the mass populace. I I can see it. I think this makes enough sense. Personally, I would probably put it at number 4. But yeah, I do see it. I understand it. It says this is the album that turned Van Halen from rock superstars into a household name, and which found Eddie Van Halen's keyboard skills bursting out of the closet with worldwide smash hit Jump. The songwriting, musicianship, and wit hit such dizzying new heights on songs like Hot for Teacher and Panama that it's staggering to think that the first Roth era was about to come to a screeching halt. Yeah, it is. It really, really crazy to think about that. But yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, this was held off the number 1 spot because of the album Thriller by Michael Jackson. So, I mean, what an album to hold this album off the charts like that. But yeah, like I said, I do enjoy this record from start to finish. I think it's such a great record. I mean, not a bad song on it. I even love the instrumental 1984, and I know a lot of people hate that instrumental, but I still do enjoy it. So, Steven, what do you think about the placement?
I mean, 1984. Huh, I mean, Survive the Night. Let me see here. No one knows what the heck I'm talking about. Let's see. So, Jump, Hot for Teacher, Panama. This is a greatest hits record to me. I mean, literally, this is what I think. think Eddie had these songs coming together for years. And I know he had Jump coming together for years. He just had probably then had got DLR to record it. And let's see, it says staggering to think Roth era was about to come to a screeching halt. To me, not really, because the difference this was making, I mean, I put it this way. So when DLR got out of Van Halen, I mean, he made stuff that sounded like this. I mean, he made, I mean, not all of his stuff was like pop, but if you, especially a couple albums later, like Skyscraper and stuff like that, I think it was called. I could be totally wrong, but I think that album was more pop than anything that Van Halen did, and I'm like, what the crap? I'm like, okay. I mean, this record. I mean, I think DLR he was already going to go in that direction where it was always a thing where he wanted to. He was always with the producers against Eddie, basically, and Eddie always wanted to do things that he wrote, and he wasn't really caring about having a number one hit necessarily. He was just worried about making a musically good album. And that's about it. That's all he cared about, really. He just cared about his guitar part. And he said he didn't even ever pay attention to the lyrics of any of the songs. He didn't really care. He just worried about his part. But I mean, I digress. Like I said earlier, I don't like the placement necessarily. I think it should be 4. So back to you.
All righty, and number 1 here is, of course, the debut from '78. It says Van Halen's debut album found Eddie Van Halen completely rewriting the vocabulary and rules of rock guitar while he and his bandmates nearly single-handedly saved classic rock from being overrun by punk and disco. Not a single moment of its 11 tracks is wasted. And in less than 2 minutes, the instrumental eruption took Eddie straight to the top of the rock guitar god list. The one single solitary paragraph that I 100% couldn't have said better myself. I think this is a perfect album. It's definitely like the greatest hits of Van Halen. It's the one that has most of the songs played on the radio. It's like the Black Sabbath Paranoid or the first Kiss album. I mean, it's the one everyone knows the most about and knows the songs off of it. I mean, it's the Fleetwood Mac Rumors. I mean, it's one of those records that has like majority of the songs played on the radio. I mean, I love it. I think it's a great record, perfect record, and my favorite Van Halen record overall. So, yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself. I think this is a perfect way to put it. So, Stephen, take the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I mean he did that right because he knew everybody would kill him dead if he didn't put this number 1. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. DLR
Hot dog in a
Skyscraper.
shake.
He was trying to fill that void, and that void of Eddie Van Halen with, you guessed it, Steve Vai. And yeah, he can shred. But Steve Vai, I mean, that whole era of people taking Steve Vai and like trying to fit him into like their band's mold, I just think it's kind of stupid. Like, I mean, Steve Vai is Steve Vai. He has his own albums and his own instrumental material and all this stuff. And they put him in these rock roles, and they put him in these, like Whitesnake, they wanted him to play more bluesy. that's really not who he is as a player. And the thing is, I think it's just stupid. Like, but that just got me onto that subject. But Van Halen 1, I just don't know. I mean, this is at the right spot. I mean, there's a couple songs on it that necessarily, you know, the population wouldn't just say, "Oh, I just love that song because it's just so melodic." But I mean, they're great songs, like "On Fire." I mean, um, uh, what's his name? I keep wanting to say Mammoth. Oh my God, I'm having a brain problem. Wolfgang. Wolfgang played this song along with Hot for Teacher live, and his big coming out party for playing Van Halen stuff. And he killed both songs, but the fact that he would play the song "On Fire" and predecessing to "Hot for Teacher" tells you a lot about it, you know. But anyway, that's all I got to say. I mean, there's nothing else to say about this record. It speaks for itself. So take it away, Devin. Take this away from me.
All righty. So yeah, that's the list. We both agree to disagree on majority of it, but like I said, where it's good, it's good. Like I said, the first probably 5 spots I could somewhat see. I kind of take it or leave it. I mean, I want to swap stuff around. Maybe that's the episode we ought to do sooner or later. Is like the Van Halen albums ranked best to worst or worst to best. That would be a cool record or a cool theme to do, a subject to do in the future. But next, we will move on to our top 5 worst Van Halen songs. And what we will do is go from our number 5, one at a time, down to our 1. And so we will go there in just a minute.